Hey guys, welcome to Drawing with Abby. I hope you're all doing well. This is actually part one of a series of videos where I'm going to be doing an illustration of Elektra. So today's video, I'm just going to be covering the sketching stage of the illustration. We'll be doing the illustration in Artflow on my Samsung S22 Ultra. To begin with, I'm going to be using the flat marker brush in Artflow. This is under the pen brush set tab that you find in the brushes. I think I've talked about this before. I love this brush in terms of just quickly sketching out pose. It's a very soft, very loose brush. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Just quickly trying just to nail down the pose, try to get the forms right. You can see that I'm using a lot of constructive lines right now, using a lot of horizontal lines just to get an understanding of the volume and of the shape of the pose. One thing I want to note is that I am using reference for this drawing. I know a lot of people out there have some weird or mixed ideas of using reference. Using reference in your illustrations is a great thing. It's a good thing, just as long as you're not tracing. For me personally, I like using Pinterest. I think it's a fantastic source of finding all sorts of great images, whether if you're looking for architectural reference or poses or props, or even just trying to get inspiration on fashion for your characters or costume ideas. I highly recommend spending some time in Pinterest and start creating your own boards there and collecting all sorts of different references. So for example, I found this particular pose on Pinterest, and I thought it was really interesting just because of the way that the figure in the photo was sort of balancing themselves on their 2 feet, which is pretty normal, but they also use their hand to brace their knuckles against the bottom of the floor, as well as extending one finger out. And I thought that was sort of a cool and sort of interesting way. So I'm going to try to emphasize that in the illustration. Great. So now that I have most of the big blocky elements of my sketch down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase the lines, which you've seen I've already done. I'm going to zoom a little bit in, and I'm going to use a smaller brush size in order to start adding details. This is something that I thought was pretty fairly just a common practice, but I do notice a lot of people just don't do this, is that leverage your brush sizes depending on where you are in the stage of your sketch. And what I mean by that, when you're doing sort of the big gestural aspects of your drawing, use a large brush size. It's great. It helps you to block shapes out really quickly. You actually get a better feel for it, I find, in your hand when you're using a big blocky shape. But then when you're refining your drawing, then you may want to scale down your brush size a little bit. So you can see here that I'm using sort of a medium brush size for the arm, but when I was doing detailing on the face, I was using a smaller brush size. One quick note, just so everyone's aware watching this video, I have sped up the recording of this drawing by about 50%. So you're not looking at my natural drawing speed. It's sped up by half. So if you're watching this and you're just like, whoa, I can't keep up, or it's like, well, that seems like unnatural hand moves, that's because it is. So I just want to make that clear so no one has like unrealistic expectations of how quickly they should be sketching. Another thing I should note is that during the course of recording this video, I did lose the latter I think 10 minutes of my time spent doing the sketch, and that's just because my camera shut off and I wasn't paying attention, and so I lost that bit of sketch. So we'll get all the way up to the final 10 minutes of the sketch. You're not missing much at those final stages. It's really just more of refining the sketch at that stage. Most of the value and most of the major work that's been being done in the sketch is the phases that you're looking at right now. This is where I'm blocking things out, trying to understand the shapes of things. And you can see that I'm constantly and consistently doing that throughout the sketch stage, whether if I'm refining the sketch or just figuring out big blocks of the sketch. It's always that critical thinking process where you're just, analyzing and trying to understand how the forms are supposed to be working in a 3D space, where the weight of everything is, and as well as the emotion of everything. So you can see in this particular sketch, the most of the weight is on the tips of the feet. So I want to make sure that the character is leaned far back enough so to display that. And the arm is there more of a stabilizing or balancing element. So that, again, so it's just one of those things that I'm just trying to be mindful of and trying to make sure that all the other elements of my sketch support that. And then in terms of the emotion, really I'm just trying to illustrate a quiet moment for the character, something where she's just having a moment to think to herself. Maybe she's struggling with a decision and she just needs a moment just to collect herself, find a moment of serenity before she leaps into action. That's sort of the vibe that I'm going for. So I'll try to communicate a little bit of tension in her anatomy, but the face is a face of serenity, a face of reflection. That actually brings up a really good point that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about. I, for the most part, spend a lot of time when it comes to sketching or even throughout the later stages of doing an illustration, just worrying about the technical aspects of a drawing. And whether if that's like the perspective or the anatomy or contrast when it comes to like inking, I spend a lot of time just thinking about those elements. And I think one of the weak areas of my own personal work is that I don't spend enough time thinking about some of the storytelling aspects of the illustrations. Why am I drawing this particular character? Why am I using this particular pose? What is the intention of the illustration? And more importantly, what is it I'm trying to make you feel when you're looking at the illustration? And I think these are really, really important questions you should be asking yourself throughout your entire illustration, but probably more importantly when you're at the sketch stage, because it helps you make better decisions throughout your illustration. And if you can start off by thinking about those things, then you'll be doing great. Now, speaking about technical elements, right now I'm using the line tool. So you can see here I'm struggling a little bit, and that's because I realized I had my line tool selected, but I had also my eraser tool. So depending if you're using your brush tool or your eraser tool, the line tool will sort of inherit what last brush you were using. So here I'm using the line tool just to get those straight edges into my illustration. Especially on my phone, I don't really run into this problem when I'm drawing on my computer monitor or if I'm drawing on my tablet, but on my phone, I find that I can't really nail down the straight lines that I need to get in an illustration, whether I'm doing architecture or a prop like this. I think a little bit has to do with how smooth the glass surface of the S22 Ultra is. Also, the S22 Ultra does have those curved edges, so I can't really sweep my hand across the entire screen because there's a fall off at certain elements on either side of the screen. There's minor issues, but it does throw me off, and I'm not able to draw as straight or as smooth of a line as I would on my other devices. It's just something I just want to highlight, and if you guys are also having the same experience, I believe the reason is that the screen itself is giving you that issue. On my tablet, I have a screen protector on there that has a paper-like texture to it. So I noticed that I'm able to get more control over how my hand moves across the screen. However, that same screen protector is not available for the S22 Ultra. So I'm sort of just stuck with the vanilla screen protectors available for it. Now you can see here, I've stopped using my flat marker brush, and I've now switched over to a pencil brush in Artflow. This is something that's fairly new for me. Usually in the past, what I've done is stuck with the flat marker brush throughout the entire sketching process, and that worked okay for me. What I'm finding is, and again, especially when I'm drawing on a smaller screen, I'm struggling to have the same level of control and the same level of refinement in the sketch stage. And I'm realizing that I'm spending a lot of time on the inking stage sort of trying to refine some of those details, and I really shouldn't be at the inking stage. I should be more focused on lighting, about mood, atmosphere, and line quality. So I've started using the pencil brush. The pencil brushes, I feel like, have just a little bit more granular control. I still don't like them for doing big, sweeping, blocky sketches. I think the flat marker brush is fantastic for that. But when it comes to doing some more refined detail, like I'm doing here, I'm actually finding that the pencil brush is doing a great job with that. So I've started to use it more and more often in my drawing process. I just realized I forgot to mention the stand that I'm drawing on. This is the Above Tech tablet aluminum arm stand. This is something that I just recently got, and the reason why I got it is that the last video I did with the S22 Ultra, I was lying it flat on my table, and this is something that I do a lot with my phone, just lying it flat on the table rather than holding it in my hand, and it's not a great drawing experience. If you're going to be drawing on a surface, whether if it's paper or a screen, you kind of want it angled towards you. And the main reason for that is that if you're drawing on a flat surface that's sitting level to the ground, you're inherently looking at your screen or your page at a skewed angle, and that's going to affect the way that you draw things in perspective. It's just going to be angled just a little slightly off. Most people sort of compensate for this over time, and that's great. I myself have done that, but just there are times and occasions where you realize that your perspective or your view is slightly misaligned. So I've grabbed this stand. I'm going to be doing a full review on it to talk about how well it works with both my tablet and my phone. But yeah, that's the major reason why I got it, so I can draw at a more comfortable angle, so I can look at my entire screen and everything's in relative perspective to how I'm looking at. So we're coming up to the end of what I've recorded for the sketch, and one thing I wanted to note before you see how the final sketch turned out is the fact that the pencils are still going to be very loose, and that's because I know I'm going to be the one to do the digital inks for this. If I was going to hand this off to someone else, I'd probably be a lot more tighter, a lot more detail oriented, but since I'm going to be digitally inking it, it's going to be pretty loose. As I mentioned, I missed the last 10 minutes of this sketch in my recording. So here it is. Here's the final sketch with those last 10 minutes added back in. You can see not a whole lot has changed with it. I made some adjustments to the hair and I added some anatomy shading to it, but nothing too dramatic. I hope you guys enjoyed this drawing video. As I said, this is part 1 of a series of videos where I'm going to be going through the inking stage in the next video, and then the video after that, I'll be covering the coloring stage. So let me know what you guys thought about this video, if you found some of the things that I talked about helpful, if there's parts of the process that you want me to sort of expand upon, reach out, leave a comment below, and I will definitely try to include those in my next upcoming videos. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, keep drawing.